Happy Friday, and we have a great group with us today. The Mavericks, once again, have been very fortunate to do our second collaboration cohort, as we're calling it. And this time we really focused on transitions into senior living. And it was an interesting discussion because when we got into it, and we'll elaborate more, there were a lot of things we wanted to tackle. So it took us a while to kind of narrow it down exactly how we were going to, navigate these opportunities that we have to really have a positive impact on our older adults and on the way we age. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Catherine Wells.
Hello. Hey, everyone. So glad you're here with us. Juliana, Morgan, Kathleen, thanks for joining us today. Super excited to have you on here. And super excited that you participated in this cohort along with about 8 other people. We couldn't get everybody on here, so thanks for joining us. One of the things I first want to do, and Francis, I should have asked you beforehand if I can screen share.
You should be able to.
Right.
If not, you can text it or email it to me, and I will be happy to do that as well too. But I think you can at the bottom, right by the.
Got it.
Okay.
I got it.
And I'm going to add it to the stream. There you go.
You're able to see that? Okay. So I just want to share a little bit with our audience about what we did. So, and then I'll have each of our participants introduce themselves. So the collaboration cohorts are when we get people, and we really try to get people from all across senior care together to work on one issue and really get in other people's roles and other people's heads and understand other people's challenges. And that's the way we believe that we can actually make change. So this cohort ran for the first quarter, January through March, and we met every other week over that period of time. So during that time, we spent some time brainstorming the problem. And the problem, as Francis has mentioned, is that period of time when you're looking to transition into senior living or senior care. And senior care includes home care. Home health, could be hospice. You might go straight into hospice. So it could be any of those things. And that's the thing about senior care is it's not linear. It's not linear at all. So really focusing on that, we then took our brainstorming and prioritized really where we could really have an impact. We worked on creating some solutions, taking some action. And because this is such a big topic, we didn't quite get to the point where we were able to put something out there and measure it. But that's okay, because this doesn't end as of March 31st. That was not the ending of this. We will have more follow-up and we'll be doing more work on it. So you'll see some more things coming out of it. But I wanted to share that that was the process that we went through. And now let me figure out how to stop sharing.
I've got it. I got you.
Thank you.
You're good.
Not quite the same as my Zoom, but close enough.
A little different.
Close enough. So with that, let each of our guests introduce themselves. Juliana, would you share with our audience a little bit about who you are?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure being part of this cohort. I'm Juliana Young. I work with a home care, non-medical home care agency, home care assistants, and I really enjoyed being part of this so that I could bring the angle in of the challenges that we see bringing in care into the home, and then the challenges that happen with communication and expectations with moving somebody from home into a community. So I'm happy to be part of this.
Thanks, Juliana. And you see that every day, all day long, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Morgan.
Thank you. I agree. It was wonderful to be a part of this cohort and learn everybody's different roles and how that applies to the transition period. And I am the director at Maintain Me Senior Services, and we do a variety of things, including case management and consultant, and then also transition. So meaning we help families identify and transition into, I should say families and individuals, because we work with a lot of individuals who are self-advocating, but identify and move into independent living, assisted living, and memory care. and help people choose which is the best level for them for the long term. But in consulting and case management, we work with home care and we look at all options. So this was fun to be a part of, to bring all those different angles together to see what the best outcome is. And no two stories are alike. It's the bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. So true. And Kathleen, and we sprung this on you that this was not one of our regular meetings, but an actual show. So you can tell your husband he had his 2 seconds of fame there as he walked through.
I'm sorry about that.
No, this is
real life.
Live, yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Live for a reason. Yep.
Right. So my name is Kathleen Hume, and I am owner and founder of Home Safety and Accessibility Solutions. And I kind of have a little bit of a different take on, senior care and placement. I try and help people remain safe and independent in their homes by modifying their homes and making their tasks safe and safe for them as well as the caregiver. And if the modifications are not serving them the way in their best interest, then moving into a facility or bringing someone in the home may be, the best solution. So I have a little bit of a different take on things.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of what we're doing all together. And then some other folks that were not able to join us today that were part of this group. I won't go through all of them, but we did have a representative from an organization that does driving assessments, which is something that families often struggle with. As a family member, I did for both my parents too. It's kind of that early warning sign that something might not be quite right with mom or dad and that they might need a little additional help. And we had Dale Carter from the Care Cafe. She runs some family support groups and they talk about things like this. And there are many others, and we'll include them in the show notes and links to everybody.
I think one we definitely need to hit though is Sarah Hagerty, the
Thank
ombudsman
you.
from Dr. Cog, which an ombudsman is a representative for the residents in long-term care who advocates for them, whether it's big or small or anything in between. But what's really great about Sarah is talking about inclusion. So looking at it across the spectrum, from whether it's minority groups to LGBT, Q, or anything in that gamut, of making sure she brought a great perspective for us to be looking at this from the true inclusionary standpoint of how we spoke about partners or spouses or assumptions of kids or things like that, that may be something we're just used to almost automatically asking. And it was really great to be able to give us that pause to step back and say, not everybody's in that situation, so we have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we had some really great sessions. We did some brainstorming, and oh boy, in that early brainstorming session, that was our first one. I feel like we could have gone for 3 hours that day.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Yeah, and it almost felt like a relief to be able to verbalize some of these things. I'm curious what your experiences were during that brainstorming.
And I want to throw something real quick to the audience. If you're watching right now or watching on repeat, throw out any ideas or experiences you have about transitions, because we literally had, I think, 100 topics at one point we wrote down. So I'd love to see what else anybody watching or watching this on rerun, share it in our comments so that we can, start to bring that into the fold as we continue to expand upon what we're doing. And I don't know, Juliana, you want to start with what your thought was on first
I was amazed and a little disheartened at the beginning, thinking, wow, we have a lot to work on. And I probably take it from personal experience with some of the snags that we have with home care. And I would say communication with the family, setting expectations, but also learning what their expectations are, whether they're spoken or not, and try to draw that out so that the experience of moving their mom, whether they're long distance or local, those first 14 days. So they have this peace of mind that everything was looked at and expectations were spoken and met. And I just think that communication, we've talked about that before, but it in a transition situation is huge, or bringing in a caregiver to the home. So that was the one main thing out of the many, many, many. So
It's great.
Morgan?
Yeah. So I agree with Juliana. There was a lot. It was thinking, oh my goodness, how are we going to sort through all of this? We have so many ideas and so many concepts. What are we going to do with all of this? And I do think it was therapeutic to get it all out there and to bring our different representations. It almost felt a little bit like if you had strings, and if you pulled one string here, then it made it too short over here. Or if you pulled it here, it made it too short over here. So it was trying to find that harmony. Which system is it? Which system do we address? But when we got it all out there, it was, wait a second, all of these systems are so intertwined. And really the client and the family or the person is at the center of it. So if everybody could just step back and not try to overcorrect, but more work in harmony with all these different systems, that's the way to find success. And I think that was our goal. And we all kind of represented those little strings, especially in our role playing.
Yeah. Really well said. It's systems theory, right? In systems theory, everything works the way it's supposed to work. So if you change one thing, it impacts all of the other things. I had it described to me once like a mobile over a baby's crib, where if you touch one of the items, it can float and all the other ones move. So it's a good visualization of it.
It's really
great. Morgan, thanks for bringing it back to. It's really all of us are doing this for one reason, and that's really the resident and their quality of life. Right.
Right. And I think what I got out of all the conversations that I was involved in was the importance of communicating with your family members what you want, so that there aren't surprises, and so that there's peace of mind for both family members and, or caregivers and the person who may be going into the facility. I think that also, as we talked, looking at moving this person from their home into a facility, looking at it as this is a place that, for instance, my mom would like, instead of this is a place I would like for my mom. So really looking at it from the person's perspective that is going to be moving. I feel like that is really, really, really important, and people need to tap into that.
That's
caregivers as well as family members and, people that run the facility. So
well said. So Catherine, you do a lot of the question asking. What about you? Let's hear from you on what you were thinking.
That one language, the way we language things, and somebody busted me this week, which I was really grateful for, that I kept using the word facility, and they said stop using the F word. And it really should be an outlawed kind of word, like the F word. It's really a community. They're not designed to be a facility in the sense of the old nursing home that we all kind of conjure from the 70s time period. So I feel like there was a lot that I got from language and how we talk about things, and even saying and I still say this because I don't have another way to say it, we put mom into memory care. That's horrible. It's a horrible thing. I mean, you don't put somebody. It's a transition, a time in life. We gave mom the level of care that she really needed to thrive in whatever capacity she had at the time.
Right.
So really, that was a huge eye opener for me. And then I think too, just the constant reminder of how nonlinear this is. So like Kathleen, your focus is on keeping people at home. Totally keep them at home as long as it makes sense. And you mentioned that once it doesn't make sense. And for some people, that's forever. For some people, they need a little more level of care. So that's where Juliana and home care can come in. And then if, they need even more than that, that's where Morgan and her team can come in. But also educating family. That's the other thing I really got is family doesn't know. And they're often thrown into the emergency of this because somebody fell and broke a hip, or in my case, my dad had 4 falls in 1 month and all of them resulted in an emergency room visit. And if they hadn't had things planned out, I would have been in a mess.
Right.
Yes.
I know we're talking about a lot of, challenges, but you know what? The cool part I think of the group we had is the opportunities. I think that is really exciting here is we have so many amazing opportunities to impact the way people talk about aging, the way people, do aging, the way we even think about aging. And that's what's really exciting is it's pretty much uncharted, where we're going to go next. I mean, we've all been shaken in some way by COVID, which is the biggest blessing I think we'll look back on in this industry as being thankful for. Is that it got us out of our comfort zone. It broke our complacency. And that's what with the group and everyone was listening to things. At first I was like, wow, this is pretty crappy. Like we've got all these challenges. I mean, that you think about it, you're going through like, you're right, that doesn't make sense, or that does, or this does. But then all of a sudden you look at it from our discussions, just the little tiny micro changes we can start today will have a resounding effect on tomorrow. And that to me is the coolest thing that we can do moving forward.
Right. And to be able to not so much have a manual, but each of us knows 10 or 15 people in our network that if a family comes to me may not need home care, but wants to look at a community, then I know that I can rely on Morgan and pass off as much information as I can to her about the family. If they're going to stay at home, but yet it looks like a home that really could use modifying, then I'll use that other spoke on my wheel. And I think that's where I learned a lot with this group, that there are so many resources that we can help a family with and walk them down the road of this journey by educating them. And they're like, I'm so glad I found you. I had no idea where to start. And I've had that said to me, which makes me feel good. But I also was that person as a daughter 7 years ago. So.
Really well said, Juliana. So what I hear is one of the things you got from this collaboration cohort was you added more tools to your toolbox to be able to provide to families. So now you can provide better service to your families. And you already provide extraordinary service. Morgan, what about you? Anything in particular that you learned that you've been able to take back and start to implement or do differently?
Do differently would just be really focusing on the communication, but beyond the obvious contact informations and things like that. But do you know who that one person is when you move in? That's a big question. Or do you just started home care? Do you know who your person is that's your contact person? Do you have their phone number on your fridge so that if there's an issue, you can call them directly up and address it? I think there was a lot of focus in talking about that, and different people have different systems for a move-in or an onboarding with a new client. But that was one that kept floating up to the top. So now I make that a priority. Even if I am sure that whoever I'm working with has done so, I'm going to reiterate to the family to really make sure they feel comfortable, or to the individual, because not everybody's working with a family, and say, do you know who it is and how to get them? And then the other big thing I really took away from this is planning and having this conversation and talking with your family. And if you know what you want your 80s or 90s to look like, then say so. And if you don't know what you want your 80s or 90s to look like, or your 70s, life doesn't stop at retirement. So plan for it. Plan, plan, plan.
I love that. If you know, say so. And then adding to that, if you don't know, say so. Have a conversation. Say, I don't know. Let's talk about this. Help me. What do you know, give me some ideas. Just even if it's your friend group versus your family, right? Other people who are like you or in your state or have that you have a relationship with that you're comfortable with. What a great brainstorming opportunity for yourself. That's really, really cool, Morgan. Yeah, the pre-planning was a big deal, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that as embracing aging. I see it as, let's talk about this. We're all having coffee together. We're all about the same age. And gosh, I don't want to talk about this with my wife. She doesn't even like the death word or dying word. So why don't we talk about what we want it to look like, and then gently have that conversation with our children, and the rest of our family. So I think that's really important.
That's great. Kathleen, what do you think?
I think it is education, education, education. It is all about, giving people that roadmap for this journey and providing them with the resources that are available to them. Having a place to start, because as we've all heard, I just don't know where to start. And I think that is something that we really need to focus on educating people about and letting them know that there is a place to start. And the more we get to know other resources that are out there, we can help to facilitate that. But I definitely learned, like Juliana said, about so many other resources and how we can work together as a team. And we need to start talking about it and getting people to think proactively so that they can thrive instead of just exist. And so that's kind of what I got out of the whole thing.
That's really great. Francis, you put me on the spot. What did you get out of it?
I think one of the biggest important aspects is communication within an organization. And what I mean by that is making sure that initial assessment, that comprehensive assessment, whether it's for home care or whatever, home care, residents, whatever that may be, that you get a system down that's able to disseminate that appropriately. So it's not just stuffed in a binder that isn't just there, that it's actually something that is passed on to the team or the people that need it most, so they have the biggest impact on that. But also acknowledging that's a living, breathing document, right? That it's not static, and it's going to be something that has to be, changed and modified, maybe daily. I mean, in the sense that we have to adapt to that individual person. So I think that's what's really important, is we've all talked about the importance of that initial assessment or evaluation, but then what happens after that? Is it getting to the right team members? Is it getting to that direct care team? Is it getting to the providers or any of those people involved? And that's what I, think is really important, is that it goes back to making sure we have, as Morgan said, the right information for who that person really is.
Let me add something. We also talked about, how do we get the physician involved earlier? Physicians tend, because they're trained to not be looking towards the end of life, so they aren't always thinking about having the conversation that maybe it's time to add another layer of care. And I think that's a really important one. I had a friend ask me the other day, I know my mom needs help, but I don't know how do I get an assessment for her so that I know what level of care she needs. So I'd love to hear from our guests. How would you respond if somebody asked you that?
What I tell the folks that are in my support group, and some of these folks have not been diagnosed yet, is to to be able to understand with a doctor that once you get a diagnosis, there's education that comes with it. And I would have to say that not all doctors do a good job with the next steps. And I think some do a great job with, you're going to want to get in touch with maybe the Alzheimer's Association and do a care consult with them. Maybe start there. They have lots of resources and education, but plugging them in versus just giving a diagnosis and wishing them well. But I also say to my group, write down everything you're concerned about, write down everything you're noticing, possibly get that to the doctor ahead of time on behalf. And so you're not standing there going, my mom is doing this and that, but to give the doctor a heads up with a sense of urgency and a request that we really need to be talking about this. I need your help. And here's what I'm noticing. So that's what I suggest.
Great approach. I need your help.
Mm-hmm.
Can you help me? Yeah. Morgan?
And I think another thing too, sorry.
No, go ahead, Kathleen.
Yeah.
I think another thing too is that just in the United States, we are not proactive when it comes to making end of life decisions, thinking about our mortality, talking about our mortality. And not only are we, the general public, not comfortable with it, physicians aren't comfortable with it. And some physicians, some are, some aren't. But I think that as we age, we're going to have to advocate for ourselves some more with our physicians and say, look, I need your guidance. I don't know where I'm going. So I think that is one way of making this journey a little bit less complicated and a little more comfortable for both sides, the professional as well as the client or the patient.
Great.
And
Well said.
Kathleen, I would just have a clarification. You're talking about just having that conversation, just everybody being more comfortable. So kind of a culture change.
Yes. Yes. Looking at it as like an honor and a privilege and an invaluable gift that you can give your family member or loved one, versus looking at it as a time-consuming burden. And I think it's just we ignore it, or we just completely just say, I can't do it, because we've never been in this position before where we've had to have this conversation with this many people. So it's kind of a learning curve for everybody.
I like the 5 wishes. I like the idea of introducing something positive to a family to say, have you ever seen this? This may be something for you to be thinking about as your dad ages. I think advanced directives, here's some suggestions on how to look at that. And what I'm finding is the adult children after this experience are beginning to get their affairs in order because they don't want to be left in the way. And the generation before us, my parents, they were not as free to share their finances, their future plans. Mom didn't want to talk about death or the D word. And I think that that's also important as adult children seeing that what's happening, and I want to change the face of aging, and I want to start with me. So I think there's a culture shift that I hope will happen due to all the aging folks now and what they're experiencing.
Right. And I think it's up to us, the adult children of these parents or loved ones that we have, for us to get busy and educate and participate in order to make these changes happen. It falls on us, truly.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
It falls on us. So I don't want to leave our conversation today without talking about our role playing, because the role playing, I think, was so incredibly eye-opening. So for our audience, one of the things that we did is we gave everyone a different hat. So if Morgan, for example, is doing case management or placement, she had to take a completely different hat and play that role, whether it was an executive director or a family member or the older adult themselves. And we all did that. And I'd love to just hear from the group on here today. How did that impact you? What did you get from that exercise?
Well,
Go ahead.
I just would say that there is so much value in putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And it does not matter what those shoes are, because none of this is easy. And I think there's a tendency to think or maybe diminish someone else's role if you don't see it as the important piece when you're looking at it. And putting myself in, I did the person giving the tour to the family. And putting myself in that role was amazingly eye-opening for me. So I just really think that empathy, sympathy, and getting into where someone else is coming from, especially the older adults, is a tremendous way to re-examine how we do things.
Well said. Well said.
I was a family member, of which I am a family member, but I also was dealing with a stubborn
That's right.
father, which my father's not stubborn. So just being able to get a feel of a frustration of maybe how I might change my language to not, Dad, you really need to do this. I'm very scared for you. You can fall down the stairs. Nobody wants to hear the you. It's, Dad, what does your future look like? What would it feel? You know, and I tried that. It wasn't comfortable, but we go into our fear mode as an adult child. Like, I've got to do something. I'm only here for 2 weeks. I'm long distance, or, you know. So I learned a lot about language and asking the other person what their thoughts are. No matter if they're in cognitive decline or not, they're helping them to be the one that finally makes the decision. I know that doesn't always work, but make them feel like they're part of the decision. That's what I got out of it.
It's really great.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, Juliana, because I was the adult child with a mom that was in rehab and not really being able to go home to her environment. And that put me in kind of a weird position because I want people to be able to go home. And so I was scared. I was like, I don't know what to tell you. But then as we started talking through it, it was like, okay, let's come to a compromise that we can both agree on, and just, you know, take a step back and process what's going on. Because I think a lot of people are just like, I have to do it right now. So your perception of, you know, including everyone, taking time to make that decision, I think is imperative. So, and there is a lot of fear as the adult child of a parent when you're in that situation.
Yeah. And one of the role plays, I was the case manager at a hospital, and somebody had someone in there who had an emergency, and I got to tell them they could not go home. And all I could do was give them brochures. I could not give them, here's what I recommend. I couldn't help them any further. I could just give them, here are the resources and some brochures that we happen to have. And so I learned, like, how frustrating that must be for them too. I know that they're really busy, but I think it's got to be frustrating that they can't do more and that the family doesn't understand their role. Because when I was a family member on the other side of that, in reality, it was like, what do you mean you can't give me your ideas on which ones? And I didn't know that there were, I don't know if they're regulations actually, but I didn't know that there were rules or
constraints. Let's call them constraints.
Yes.
Let's call them constraints. Because it depends on who you talk to. Some say regulations, some say company policy, but there's definitely constraints across but again, I think that's what our discussions here are great for, just that, right? We're bringing the light to, hey, is this really a constraint we should have, right? Or let's start talking from the ground up to make some positive change, whether it is from regulations or laws or whatever it is, because we have so much opportunity in front of us with the right voices that are, yes, different parts of the industry, but the right common goals or objective or destination postcard that we want to get to, which is aging that's essentially unrestricted on what it can be.
Yeah.
That it is not binded by this idea you have to fit into this box. And that's what my hope is for these groups and our discussions, is we acknowledge that we don't need to stuff everybody to fit this certain perfect little square. Then you can go into that location or you can go into that one, right? But we have this objective to where aging is unrestricted and essentially undefined, but it does have the support necessary to be successful.
Right, to guide them down the path to the destination. I like that.
Yeah.
Well said. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today and sharing your experience of the collab cohort. I hope you all join us for our next collab cohort, which we're going to give ourselves a little bit of time in between and finalize some of the things from this one. But something that came from this collab cohort is our absolute desire and commitment every single day to make change in the way we age. And one of the ways that's showing up is we are holding an event September 16th and 17th in Denver. Please join us if you can. We want everyone across all of senior care, every different role, every different level, including older adults and family members. And it's called Collaboration in Aging. The reason it's called Collaboration in Aging is just what we've been talking about here, but also we're collaborating with 2 other organizations. And so we're really walking the walk. We are collaborating with CALA, Colorado Assisted Living Association, and GDPRA, which is the Greater Denver Placement Resource Alliance. And the people are coming together. And one of the things we'll be doing is where you would typically find a vendor village or, the trade show floor, we will be mapping that as the senior care journey, really to show people how nonlinear the senior care journey is and all the different choices and roles and communications that have to happen along the way. So we hope that our audience, we hope if you're listening, you'll be able to join us. We'll post more information as we get it, but keep those dates in mind. And thank you all for joining us today on this event. Our guests, you've been amazing. You always are every day. I'm grateful to each and every one of you for what you do.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having Mavericks Senior Living. Yeah.
Thank you all. We will talk soon. So stay tuned for some more information. Some next or new collab cohort will be coming up, and we'll share more information in the next coming weeks here. But really appreciate everybody. And again, share your thoughts. Share your thoughts with us on our comment section, so we know what you're also experiencing as well too. And you've got a lot of great experts who can help answer questions and give input as well. So don't be afraid to just put it out there and see what happens.